enjoying the stream. If you are, please hit the like button. And if you've been here a couple of times and you like what I'm doing, then hey, why not subscribe, and let's get me to 5,000 subs before the end of the year. I've got a big announcement that I want to do at 5,000 subs.
Ooh.
And yeah, so let's get there. And it's a pretty cool project.
Is this an announcement you've told me before, so I could hype it up too?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah. If it's what I think it is,
I'll tell you in chat.
Y'all gonna want to sub if it's what I think it is. If we could just get to that 5. Yeah, that's what I thought it was, dude. That's what I thought it was. Perfect. Yeah, they're gonna love that. They're gonna love it. Let's get to 5,000.
Let's do it. All right, so this right here is fun. You got an eloquent man here. Very, very eloquent man. Don't you just love how Ethan Van Sciver is he's so clever with his, irony. And for a while his name was trusted member of the media. It's like a teenage boy who's just, thinks he's much more clever than anybody. And I know this because I was one of those once. Yeah. So this is Ethan Van Sciver. He said on Twitter the other day, comics bread tubers evidently don't understand that the comics code wasn't some dark night of fascism under Wortham. It was the comic book industry saying, point taken, Congress. Some of this shit is rough. We'll monitor our own content, though. You stay out. First thing I'd like to say is this is a response to me. Anybody that's seen my video or recent clip from it was in part of the Flat Scan Review episode 2, but I did a segment upload recently it's called anti-fandom and fascism are the same thing. And in that, I talked about the comics code and the Red Scare, Frederick Wortham with the comics code, and the Red Scare with Joseph McCarthy, and how those kind of all converged into the John Birch Society kept those kind of narratives, these anti-communist subversion narratives alive, even though they were boiling under the surface for a lot of the 20th century and up until recently. But they've boiled over again, and now you're hearing it all over again. You're hearing that communists, everything that the left does is communist agenda, and it's like Biden's a communist. Like, what? And once again, they don't know what words mean. Comics bread tubers, which I don't consider myself a bread tuber. But this is very clearly in reference to my video, and a couple of things I'd like to kind of suss out from the fact that he didn't mention me for once is that I think that he doesn't want his audience seeing my content anymore. I think I've started to hit a little too close to home. And but he is definitely wanting to subvert what I had to say in that video, because look, there's no other comics bread tubers who are making videos right now about the comics code being an element of, kind of fascist attempt. And yes, he is actually factually correct with the part about it, the comic industry saying, point taken, Congress. Some of this shit is, well, I don't know about the some of this shit is rough thing. I don't know that at the time the comics industry was like, oh, you're right, we're doing bad comics, we need to stop it. But they did say, we're going to monitor our own content, stay out. That's essentially correct. That is essentially correct, yes.
I think the movie industry did the same thing with the MPAA, American at least.
American it's an attempt to maintain some control over your content, even though but I want to do something. I want to take a look at the text of the comics code.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
Okay, so he actually says, he tries to paint the comics code authority and the everybody knows the comics code of seal of approval. He tries to paint that as it's actually a positive thing for comics. Let's look at it. Why is Ethan Van Sciver championing the comics code? Could it be because it actually lines up pretty well with what his goals for comics would be if he had his say? And I want everybody to pay real close attention to the phrasing of this stuff, because it can be interpreted in any number of ways. A lot of these, it really basically depends on whose hand is on the lever of power. The comics code was self-applied. It was an industry self-applied thing, yes. But the implication of it was if they break their own code, that's when the federal government's going to step in, right?
Okay.
That was the implication. The reason that they're doing this to themselves is because, yeah, that is better than the government directly telling you what to do. But it's still like a secondhand kind of censorship. Because, look, crimes shall never be presented in such a way as to create sympathy for the criminal, to promote distrust of the forces of law and justice, or to inspire others with a desire to imitate criminals. That, you know, on the surface, again, that seems like a relatively like, okay, that makes sense. But it depends on what we're defining as crimes. It depends on what the laws are at any given moment. As anybody should be aware that's not a child, you know, the criminal code is not always moral. It doesn't, you know, it very often doesn't line up with morality. If crime is depicted, it shall be as a sordid and unpleasant activity. Okay, sordid and unpleasant are entirely subjective terms. What you find sordid and unpleasant might not be what I find sordid and unpleasant. Then it starts to get a little more fashy. Policemen, judges, government officials, and respected institutions. That's very subjective because some people respect the institution of police. And I think most people should be aware that a lot of times these days, the institution of police is not worthy of much respect.
They got some problems.
They got a few issues to work out. Shall never be presented in such a way as to create disrespect, another subjective word, for established authority. That's a fashy thing. Yeah. Criminals shall not be presented so as to be rendered glamorous or to occupy a position which creates a desire for emulation. That basically just reiterates the first one.
Yeah.
So they were very. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how does Scarface go? Because he gets his in the end. Like this is like there's some trickery here that could be like what exactly counts.
That's a great point, because what if a comic story wanted to tell a 6-issue arc, and by the end of it, the criminal will get what's coming to him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But up until then, the criminal's going to have free reign and do his thing. He's going to murder people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That would be banned by the code. So that is censorship. That's saying you can't tell that kind of story.
Yeah.
Because in you know, you're not showing the criminal getting what's coming to him until the end of the 6 issues.
Yeah. Or what about like even like a character like Harley Quinn would
not be allowed.
Would not be allowed because you have sympathy for her because she's a victim of abuse, right? Like so that creates sympathy for her.
Yep. So you can't portray any character's nuance, and that's, you know, as we're starting to learn, I think these days that crime is a symptom of problems with society. It's problems with you know, economic structures and power structures, dynamics. Yes, there are absolutely crimes that are committed that I think nobody would disagree are fucking bad. Murder is bad. You know what I mean? Rape is bad. You know, you shouldn't steal from an individual who's just working and paying their bills. You know what I mean? But that's different than maybe taking a pencil from Walmart or something like that. You know what I mean?
Varying degrees. You still shouldn't take that pencil, but it's not like, you know, it's not as bad. Yeah.
Let's see. Scenes of excessive violence shall be prohibited. Now, I mean, this isn't very out of line with what was going on in the culture in the 50s anyway. They weren't really allowed to show excessive violence in movies or TV either. But it also kind of, there's a balance there of what's the culture is willing to accept and what the culture wants to consume as well. Yeah. And in post-World War II era, I think most people were pretty over violence for a while. But I mean, you know, so there's a little give and take there with that. No comic magazine shall use the words horror or terror in the title. So that's just, you can't use words. These words are not okay. They're censored.
Ethan's cool with that.
Yep. All scenes of horror, excessive bloodshed, gore, or gruesome crimes, depravity, lust, sadism, masochism shall not be permitted. All lurid, unsavory, gruesome illustrations shall be eliminated. Here's where it starts to get really, really nebulous. really, I want everybody to pay attention to how nebulous some of these words are. Like, you may have a specific idea of what these words mean. I may have an idea of what these words mean, but that doesn't mean that that's the concrete, objective definition for these words. So what that does is it leaves room for manipulation by the people who are in control of this. Inclusion of stories dealing with evil shall be used or shall be published only where the intent is to illustrate a moral issue, and in no case shall evil be presented alluringly, nor so as to injure the sensibilities of the... Holy shit. I don't know that if somebody said, hey, I'll pay you $100 to write a really subjective sentence that's just indecipherable to any kind of objective definition, I don't know if I could write a better sentence than that. Inclusion of stories dealing with evil. What is evil? Please, what is evil? You know, that's completely defined by the individual or the contemporary culture. Published only where the intent is. Okay, how do you prove intent? How do you decide what intent is? You know what I mean? Like, this is a story I've told a long time ago on a short stream I did like a year and a half ago. Little anecdote, Andy, for you. Okay, so when I was younger, I had a friend who, a good friend of mine, really, really smart guy. Like, I looked up to him in so many ways. He was, could play several musical instruments and stuff. He got a traffic ticket for, you know how everybody's probably done this. You're driving and you want to turn right at an intersection at a stoplight, but there's a car in front of you that's not turning right. So hey, look, there's a parking lot right here. All I have to do is turn into this parking lot and I can get on that road I'm trying to get on, right? You know what I mean?
Sounds normal.
Yeah. Well, he did that. He said, well, there's this parking lot. And he turned into it, and then he got on the road so he didn't have to wait for the car in front of him to turn right. And he got pulled over immediately. And the cop wrote him a ticket for, I guess, driving through a parking lot to avoid a stoplight. And that's pretty much what he wrote on the ticket, was that, he used this parking lot to avoid the stoplight. Well, my friend took it to court. He fought it. And he represented himself in court. And he successfully argued, he got out of paying the ticket and the court had to pay his costs because he argued that there's no possible way that police officer, like he made the police officer go up on the stand and testify, and he questioned him. My friend questioned the cop and said, because, they have to go by what's written on the ticket. What the cop wrote is what you have to work with in that situation. And the cop used the word to, as in implying intent. And my friend was like, are you psychic, sir? He was like, well, no. Well, how do you know what my intent was? Because I say my intent was to pull in there and adjust my seat before I got back on the road. Can you prove that that wasn't my intent? He was like, no. And he won. He didn't have to pay the ticket. The word to implies intent in that context. So yeah. When you're talking about where the intent is to illustrate a moral issue, it's so fucking wonky, man, to try and apply this stuff to art. Anyway, yeah. Scenes dealing with or instruments associated with Walking Dead torture. Yeah, because they were real upset about the horror comics at the time.
Instruments, huh?
Yeah, I guess so.
It's just not the act itself, but or the creatures themselves, just instruments related.
I don't even know what that would mean. Like,
yeah, so like vampires, I would assume you can't show a stake then.
That's exactly what I was thinking. So even if you don't have a vampire in the story, if you have some guy go, hey man, I've made this stake in case there's ever like, nope, banned. Banned.
I made this just in case. It stops right there. Like the code got him before you can even finish.
Yep. Let's see. Profanity, obscenity, smut, Jesus Christ, vulgarity. All of these are, I mean, I think most people probably, profanity is really defined by tradition and habit, I mean, look at Australia. They say cunt all the time and nobody gets offended by it. you know, so it's not as profane as it is in the United States culture, but whatever. Nudity in any form is prohibited, as is indecent or undue exposure. What does that mean? Because, you know, back in like the 20s, it was indecent to show a ankle for women.
An
You
elbow,
know, like, yeah,
elbows.
like you slut, you're showing your elbows.
Cover up, pussy.
Oh, so this is where it actually runs exactly contrary to Comicsgate. Females shall be drawn realistically without exaggeration or any of any physical.
Oh no! Can everyone copy and paste that to Ethan's tweet right now? Copy and paste that to Ethan's tweet, and
let him know. Let him know.
Let him know. And there goes manga.
Illicit sex relations are neither to be hinted or portrayed. Rape scenes as well as sexual. Okay, rape scenes. You know, nobody really wants to see that. I don't think it. You know, I mean, I don't know that there's a lot of desire to draw a bunch of rape or to have that in stories or anything, but you know, whatever. That's probably not controversial to most people. But what is sexual abnormalities? I'll tell you what it is.
Don't break TOS.
I'll get there in a minute. Then seduction and rape shall never be. Why are they're like really obsessed with the rape thing? I mean, okay, but why are you mentioning it twice? Here's where it gets, this is exactly in line with Comicsgate. Sex perversion or any inference to the same is strictly forbidden. What is sex perversion? In the context of the 1950s, it was homosexuality. That's what it meant. They didn't even say homosexuality back then. They wouldn't say gay. They wouldn't say homosexual. They would say sexual perversion.
Yeah. You can't say it because you'll catch it. You'll catch the gay if you say the gay. And then you have to pray the gay away, okay? Yeah, it's like Candyman.
Nudity with meretricious, that's a word I've never heard, I don't think. Purpose and salacious postures shall not be permitted in the advertising of any product. Okay. Well, then,
Can you prove this was meretricious?
I was about to close this out, and then I happened to look at the last bit. To be offensive or contrary to good taste or morals. Good taste or morals. Completely subjective. Completely.
Yep.
All right. So, yeah, that's why Ethan loves it. Other than that one example where it would completely destroy Comicsgate because, you know, so many of them loved them big titty women and, you know.
But they don't want any gore or anything. So they're going to, what are they writing? Archie comics? What are they doing over there in Comicsgate? They don't want any.
I don't know. Yeah, it's really weird to be simping for fucking Wortham. I'll tell you that. It's really fucking weird because he's been over the, you know, decades since then. He's a disgraced psychiatrist. He's not taken seriously by anyone. Even, you know, like the only reason for anyone to simp for him is to intentionally and insidiously try to rewrite history in their favor so that they can, I guess he's arguing for, you know, he doesn't want gay stuff in comics. He doesn't want black people in comics. And if somebody like Ethan got their hands on the lever of a new comics code authority, which isn't going to happen, by the way, that nothing like that's going to happen. He's just using it for a talking point. It's something else to throw out because my video was effective and said exactly what he doesn't want people to think, that he's a fucking fascist and all of his talking points are fucking fascism. Okay. And he's a, you know, so he's got to put counter information out there. And I actually take it as a huge compliment. Not only that he's responding to my video, but he's afraid to even mention me in regards to it.
He's vague tweeting. He's vague tweeting. That's a vague tweet.
Yeah, and which is new. That's why I take it as an extra compliment because he, you know, every time I mentioned him or you know, like he's not been afraid to talk about me. He's not been afraid to mock me on stream, you know, and such. And I admit that, you know, some of my early videos, my arguments weren't as articulate as they can be now and stuff. But that video, the anti-fandom and fascism are the same thing. That is the crux of this channel. That is the video I've been waiting and formulating the arguments in my head for over 2 years now to make. That is, you know, the channel used to be called Actual Context. The actual, I never did say that until recently, what the actual means in that. But in my mind, it was fascism. It's the thing that people weren't applying whenever they would analyze this stuff. is you look at it through the lens of How Fascism Works by Jason Stanley, or you can look at Echo's 14 Points. You know, there are other writings on it as well. This is the context that I apply, and this is why I am effective at my less than 5,000 sub channel. Pisses these guys way off. Like, why is that? It's because
if one tweet could piss them off, where they make a whole video surrounding one tweet with like 3 likes, it's kind of consistent, right?
Yeah. Flux Core, yeah, Perp wants to debate him. I think he's too dishonest to debate. Honestly, he's just.
It's not even. I don't even think it's a debate. I just want to chat with him and just like ask some questions. That's all.
Well, he'll frame it as a debate and say that he won, no matter what.
Well, that's fine. I'll say it right now. You won, Ethan. Let's talk. You already won. Let's talk. Yeah, you won. There.
All right.
No pressure.
He refuses to be held to any real points. Like, if you watch that debate with Taylor, Taylor had some really solid stuff to say. There were actually a couple of times when Ethan just flat out, you could tell he didn't know how to respond. So that he literally was just like, we can't talk about this right now on stream. I'll tell you why later. Like, come on, dude.
When I come up with the reason.
Yeah, Ethan Van Sciver is so he's very cautious about what he talks about on stream, right?
Yeah.
Come on. There's only one reason why he would do that. And it's because there's nothing he can say against it, or at least he hasn't thought about what he could say against it in that moment. Taylor hit him with something he hadn't prepared to counter. With, he hadn't prepared his bullshit rhetoric, or, seriously, watch that debate. You can see how he will deflect, divert, or if he's perfectly willing to be serious and sincere when he's making his points. Well, I don't want to say sincere, but he's perfectly willing to be serious and well thought out, even if he's dishonest when he's making his arguments. But whenever Taylor would hit him with something that is, a pretty valid criticism, or something that he, logical inconsistency or rhetorical inconsistency or fallacy, there's a handful of tactics he would use. Mockery, he would start laughing. He would kind of dismiss that as like, oh, it's just a meme. That's the thing that the alt-right conservatives love to do, is it's just memeing. All of these ways to escape accountability, to ignore having to make any kind of factual statement in regard to what's being said. And that's why I think it's pointless to debate someone like Ethan. He is way too financially incentivized. Whereas Lyndon, who's allegedly a volunteer, doesn't even get paid for the crap he writes. He's just doing it, I guess, to fit in. You can see that he struggled. Ethan he's a millionaire from lying.